Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Welcome, everyone. This is a live video broadcast as part of our Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life program, and it is great to be with you. I am Anna Mari Pieterse. I coordinate this initiative together with Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director of Humanities team, who unfortunately cannot be with us today. Now, standing in for Steve to co-host this wonderful upcoming conversation with our very special guest, Jonathan Goldman, with me today, is my humanities team colleague, Stephen Dynako. In a short while, I will ask Stephen to introduce himself properly. In this exciting program, we are going to talk about the healing power of sound, and we will contemplate on the scientific nature of sound and on sound as an art. You can share your questions by depressing chat at the bottom of your screen. A quick introduction, as we normally do, to Humanities team as we get started. In Humanities team, we believe there's only one presence, the divine. We are all emanations of the divine. This is true for each of us and for all of life. It doesn't matter how far our lives may be from reflecting this truth. It is still true. We believe that we are invited to live in communion with the divine and to be an authentic expression of the presence, the peace, and the power which are our true essence. When we do this, we live in sacred relationship with the divine and with each other. We believe that we do not need to be perfect or even excellent. We are invited to simply receive God's love and be an expression of that, each in our own way, to the best of our ability. In this way, we add to the light in the world and create processes to protect and nurture humanity and all of life on our precious planet. We believe that when we are intentional about this, we can live this way each day. And when we do this together, we create the world that we've all been envisioning for a long, long time. Now, at this point, I'd like to invite my co-host, Stephen Dynako, to say hello and to share a little bit about himself with all of us. Hello and a welcome to you, Stephen. I'm delighted to have you with me. Many people will know you as the Program Director of the Conscious Business Enterprise, but I know that there's much more to your picture.
Thank you, Anna Marie. I'm grateful that you're having me here today. And yes, I am the Program Director for our Conscious Business Enterprise program, Humanities team, and I really came just to doing this work through a really deep business background that at some point just didn't feel resonant with me anymore, and had gone off on a path of pursuing the ministry and professional chaplaincy and pastoral counseling for a while, and then it kind of came to the epiphany that it wasn't doing one at the expense of the other, but it was taking my deep experience in business and merging that with my desire to help people. And that there's a long and winding road that led me to the Humanities team and what I'm doing here today. So I'll just be brief and share that as a basis for a brief introduction to me. So thank you.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Stephen. It's our first time together, and I know that we're going to have a great time together. We have a number of questions that we have put together for Jonathan Goldman, but ultimately, we hope to have a wonderful conversation. I know that this hour normally goes by so quickly, and I know that between the three of us and together with the questions coming from our audience, it's going to be wonderful. And now what we normally do before we introduce our special guest, it's standard practice for us to do a short description of the sphere of the month, and in this case, it is the sphere of the arts. So I'd like to go right ahead and do that for us first. So in the sphere of the arts, we look at creative expression through the great variety of media, and we do so being aware of the inextricable, interrelated, interconnected, interdependent, and interrelated reality of life. And as we do so, we are mindful that we are all artists in some way, and that art is always at play, and it is always present in all spheres of life. It is present in the whole wheel of co-creation, and it is part of all of our human endeavors. The arts is the reflection of our gifts and our desires to inquire about and to observe all aspects of life. The arts are meme makers and meme reflectors. They are mirrors through which we can see ourselves in new ways. As we engage with the sphere, we want to explore how the greatest purpose of art would be to express and reflect the absolute truth as awareness and as self-awareness, and to encourage the further development of oneness consciousness. Art has the potential to help us realize our deeper nature. In the creative seeds lie the source, the birth, and the death of the entire universe. We see the simple painting of a tree is similar to the vast unfolding of spirit in and as the cosmos. A speck of dust holds the same depth and enormity of magic, grace, and beauty as the master's painting, a poetic verse, or a symphony. The creation and appreciation of art cannot help but transform us if we are open and willing to engage in the broadening of our horizons and the striving to expand and integrate all aspects of life. And now I'd like to ask you, Stephen, to please introduce our very special guest, Jonathan Goldman. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So Jonathan Goldman, MA, is an international authority on sound healing and a pioneer in the field of harmonics. He is author of Healing Sounds, Shifting Frequencies, The Lost Chord, the best-selling The 7 Secrets of Sound Healing, Chakra Frequencies, co-authored with his wife Andy, and his latest book, The Divine Name, winner of the 2011 Visionary Award for Best Alternative Health Book. Jonathan is director of the Sound Healers Association and president of Spirit Music, Inc. in Boulder, Colorado. A Grammy nominee, he has created numerous best-selling award-winning recordings, including The Divine Name with Greg Braden, Reiki Chants, Frequencies, Sounds of Healing, The Lost Chord, 2012 Ascension Harmonics, and Chakra Chants, double winner of Visionary Awards for Best Healing Meditation Album and Album of the Year. Jonathan is a lecturing member of the International Society for Music Medicine. He has dedicated his life to the path of service, helping to awaken and empower others with the ability of sound to heal and to transform. In the spring of 2011, Jonathan was named as Watkins Review's 100 Most Spiritually Influential People on the Planet. Also in 2011, Jonathan was inducted into the Massage Therapies Hall of Fame. He presents Healing Sounds lectures, workshops, and seminars worldwide. Jonathan lives in Boulder, Colorado with his wife, Andy. And a warm welcome to you, Jonathan.
Stephen, just many blessings to you. Anna Mari, many blessings to you, to everyone who's listening, watching, and just being in our presence. Blessings to you all. What an honor it is to be here with you. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Stephen, and welcome from me to Jonathan, to this Oneness in 12 Spheres of Life program. It's really great to have you with us. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I'd like to get started right away with our first question to you. And so with that, and Jonathan, there's much to share around healing and sound, and especially the extent of your work within all of this. But as a start of our conversation, and especially for the benefit of people who do not know you all that well, and I don't know how many of them are out there, we'd like to ask you to please share with us how it happened for you to become an international authority on sound healing and a pioneer in the field of harmonics.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I trust this is going to be an amusing story, because it was one of those experiences almost as though, for me, the light of God struck me one night when I was performing on stage. I was playing in a rock and roll band in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I put my guitar on after coming in from a break, began to play, and all of a sudden became aware that the people in the audience were, if you like, exhibiting an ambiance of negativity and violence. And I understood that the alcohol and the other intoxicants that they were imbibing in were certainly helping create this, but also I realized that the music that I was creating at the time was also, if you like, not boosting their consciousness. And I had the thought, and Anna Mari, you have to understand, I've been performing professionally for about 15 years. I had the thought at the time, what if music could be used to make people feel better? And within a week, that shifted just a couple of degrees, not 180, but just a couple of degrees, and became, what if sound could be used to heal? And literally, I went, oh my goodness gracious, and I then devoted the rest of my life to doing this. This was back in the late 1970s, and I began finding the very few books that were around, the very few recordings that were around. Ultimately, I created a course at Lesley University that gave me a master's degree in independent study researching the uses of sound and music for healing. I started the Sound Healers Association. I took my record company, which was a, shall we say, a straight rock and roll company, and turned it into one of the first therapeutic music companies. And it was called, I didn't have to change the name of it though, it was called Spirit Music. That's interesting. And then I began to write books and just share, because I realized that this information was so very, very important to share with everyone.
Wow, that is amazing. Wonderful, wonderful. That specific and very important question came to your mind. How about if, you know, what would it be like if sound was possible? It was possible for sound to heal and transform our lives. That's wonderful. Stephen, over to you.
Sure, yeah. So Jonathan, you had studied with masters of sound from both scientific and spiritual traditions. And today you're a lecturing member of the International Society for Music Medicine. So what is it exactly about sound that makes it possible for people to heal and transform their lives?
Well, Stephen, basically, we have to realize that the ancient sages and the modern scientists and modern quantum physicists are in agreement that everything is in a state of vibration. And this, this includes our body. So if a portion of our body is vibrating out of its correct frequency, we are like an orchestra that perhaps the second violin player has lost their sheet music and they're playing the wrong notes and the wrong melody, and all of a sudden the entire orchestra sounds off. This is akin to our body, if you like, vibrating out of ease or vibrating out of harmony, and we say it's dis-ease. So the concept of using sound for healing is to give the string player back this sheet music and basically get the body to be playing back to its normal, healthy, resonant frequency. It's that simple and that profound. Now, there are two basic ways that sound can be used to heal. Because most people just think of sound or music as being something that goes into our ear and we hear something. Okay, this is called psychoacoustics, and it goes into our ear and into our brain and into our nervous system, affecting our heart rate, our respiration, and our brain waves. And also there's something called vibroacoustics. This is where the sound goes into our body and literally affects us on a cellular level and on a molecular level, shifting and changing the frequencies there. So we have these two different ways that sound can affect us, through psychoacoustics and through vibroacoustics.
Yeah, when you speak about that, the thoughts that come to my mind, Jonathan, is often when I look at musicians, and I mean, in the first place, for me, it remains one of the most incredible things that a person can pick up a guitar or play a piano, that knowing that this comes from inside of their bodies. But not only that as they do that, they stir that around them. When I listen to guitar sound or the sound of piano, it makes me move. So whatever comes through the body or the spirit of another person, has such an enormous effect on everything around them.
Yes, no question about that. And one of the things, and I trust we'll talk about this later, is the fact that music is wonderful and people listen to music, but at the same time, this power of vibroacoustics, of actually resonating our physical body with sound, is so very, very powerful. And oftentimes people think, okay, in order to basically work with sound as a healing modality, I have to be a trained vocalist, I have to be a trained singer, I have to be a trained musician. And my wife, Andy, and I began working with sound for a long time when we realized a lot of people sort of hit a roadblock because they thought, well, I can't work with sound for healing because I'm not trained, I'm not musical. And we thought, okay, everyone is musical because everyone has a voice. We said, okay, what is the one sound that everyone can make and they don't judge themselves? Because that's one of the things that has happened these days. People get very, very, because of all the shows on TV, and God bless them, God bless them, they're wonderful, but at the same time they get, well, that person is out of pitch or whatnot, and they judge themselves. But what's the one sound that we all can make? Children make it, elderly people make it, and that's the hum. So we began to work, and actually our latest book is called The Humming Effect, and it's doing very well because we basically started the first chapter with what is called peer review or scientific information on how sound, and particularly humming, can physiologically affect us, and it's quite remarkable.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's truly amazing. So, but apart from today, the conversation that we're having today, sound, especially the creation of sound, it falls within the sphere of the arts. So we're speaking about how it has an effect on people. How, to your mind, Jonathan, do you see the arts in itself creating planetary healing? So not only sound, but arts as a whole, and sound as part of that.
Well, basically, bottom line, I feel that evolution, that arts, if you like, the main purpose of art is to evolve our consciousness. And so therefore, whether it's looking at pictures, listening to music, or doing any of sculpting or doing any other form of art, it's literally raising our consciousness and shifting us, and if you like, connecting us higher with the divine. And particularly music. And as you may know, we have coming up actually in less than a month something called World Sound Healing Day. And this is a day when tens of thousands of people throughout the planet basically stop and they pause, and we do it on February 14th, which in the United States is Valentine's Day, and we make an ah sound out, filled with love and harmony, out to the planet, with the concept being that there's been a lot of research now on heart-brain coherence, and the fact that the field that we create when our brain and our heart are synchronized together can be many, many times greater than just the brain itself or the heart itself. Anywhere from, some say 50 times, some say 500 times, some say 5,000 times greater. But the concept is when the heart and the brain are working together, this field, this electromagnetic field that we have is so much greater. And then when you add the element of sound, you amplify this even more. And this is one of the reasons why I would like to suggest that the prayers on our planet are basically vocalized. Whether they're whispered, spoken, or sung, they're vocalized because sound amplifies the power of prayer, and it also amplifies the power of meditation. And so on this day, people make an ah sound to interface with the energy field of our planet. And from some of the research that has been presented, it really feels like it is a possibility that we can not only interface with the energy field, the Gaia matrix, as I call it, but literally also help shift and change and raise the consciousness of all sentient beings. And we really need that now, don't you think?
Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things I wanted to underscore, you had mentioned that that we all are musical inherently.
Yes.
And we're in this culture of like the American Idol, where it's inherently judgmental because they're all up there being judged. And I think it's really important in your message how you recognize that we all are inherently musical. And I think the fact that we all make sounds from the very moment of birth would prove that.
Well, you know, Stephen, I mean, really very, very, very much so. And once again, one of our greatest challenges is the fact that people just don't think they can use the power of their voice to basically do anything that is positive, whether it's making a sound or singing a song or whatnot. And really, literally, if a mother is holding a baby and they're singing a lullaby, they're really, I'm sure, not judging themselves on whether or not they're in key or not. But there are some people who would like us to believe that this is really what makes things, if you like, matter. And from my perspective, and back in the 1980s, I came up with this formula, which I'd like to share with you and your listeners and viewers. And that is frequency, which is the sound, because sound travels in cycles a second, and it's called its frequency, but plus intent equals healing. Intent is the, if you like, consciousness that we encode upon the sound. And I think this is so very, very important. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, no, for sure. But a question that comes to mind for me, Jonathan, as you share about what will be happening on this special occasion, why is it specifically the sound of ah? I know one of my favorite meditation CDs is the one by, he's passed away now, the beautiful Wayne Dyer. So he has the one with the R sound and the O sound. So what is the difference between those two? What's the frequency difference between those?
Well, it's not frequency difference. It perhaps could be chakra difference, which are the energy centers, but once again, the intention as well, because there are three basic sounds that seem to be seed sounds of creation that are found. The ah, the om, and the hue. And these three different sounds, depending upon the tradition. And once again, the intentionality of it. So I could say, well, specifically, the ah works with the heart center, which I believe the ah does. But you have to understand that you have amen. In certain traditions, the om is aum. So they really converge. And there's no conflict between them because they're all part of the sacred aspect of the vowel sounds, which are probably, in the beginning was the word. Here's one that I'm just going to throw at you. When my wife Andy and I were researching the hum, we opened up a copy of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras that had been translated by Swami Satchidananda. And I just happened to open it up because we were teaching at his center in Yogaville, and it literally said in the beginning was pranava, the humming of prana, which is energy. And they had to give it a name, so they called it Om. So the went into it, Om. I love that. I love the interconnection, how all these different things are interconnected. But what's interesting is, Anna Mari, what's the sound that we make when we really like something? Ah.
True, yes.
And it's found in a lot of the names of the gods and goddesses on our planet. Tara, Yaheshua, Yahweh, etc. One can go Buddha, one can go on, and so the divine, even if you put your hand on your heart and go, and you can feel it vibrating right in the middle of your chest. Here, I'm going to get up there, over there, and say, try that, and that really works.
Yes. Yes,
And
absolutely.
Jonathan, there's a question somewhat, I think, related to what you've been talking about. It's from Martha, and she says, in using this amplifying effect of sound during meditation, does this only work when we ourselves make the sound, or does sound that we listen to also amplify the effect of prayers or meditation?
I think that they both work, and from my perspective, um, I prefer, if possible, to do them both together. If you've got a sacred sound with the sacred sound, and it's like 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jonathan, I know that when we visit your website, we will see there that you've created what you call the tuning fork and also other sonic tools. Can you please share a little bit about this? So we're talking about the voice, not only is the voice or the instrument tools for us to create and to transform our lives, but there are these tools, sonic tools. Can you share a little bit more about this with us?
Well, I sure can. And can we hold the camera on you for a second? And I'm going to disappear for about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, here is a tuning fork, and I'm just going to hit it together, and you might be able to hear it a little bit there. It's not very loud, and it's almost in the ultrasonic frequency. And tuning forks, humans like tools, and they like toys. They like things to play with. Here I've got, a little Native American flute over here. We like different toys. And the cool thing about tuning forks particularly is that tuning forks, usually we have them both together, and they're within a certain frequency range, and you can hear them, and you can use them on yourself for very many different purposes. If you go onto our website, you'll see that, which is healingsounds.com, you'll see that we have ones that enhance intention. We have ones that basically allow you to tune your consciousness to the frequency of what I call the Gaia matrix. It's called the Schumann resonance, which is 7.83 cycles a second. We have others that help basically create balance. We have others that help attune to our DNA. So it's not just a frequency, but what is called an interval, which means two different sounds going together. An interval is the space between the sound.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? This automatically makes me think of, for me being from Africa. So when we think about sound and the fact that, that it can heal, immediately we think about harmony. And when we think about harmony, we think that harmony is only made up of, a flowing sound. Although from the continent where I'm from and many other indigenous cultures, we find that it is exactly because you're talking about the sound, the space in between. I immediately think about not only the space in between, but conflict, the role of conflict in harmony. What is your thought about that?
The role of conflict in harmony. Well,
yeah. So contradicting sounds, so that it's not always only all flowing. It's not always the flowing sounds that brings about peace and harmony, but often it's conflict. That conflict plays a role in, for us. It's all about the other. So for the one to be there, it's important for another to be.
Well, what's interesting, and Garth or whomever, you can put the camera back on me. I'm back here now if you want. I don't know if I'm here or not, but one of the things that I wanted to say is that there's a phenomena called cymatics, which is cyma is a Greek for waveform, and cymatics is the Greek word for waveform, and it shows how when sound is exposed to a plate covered with either plastics, paste, or liquids, it makes this incredibly beautiful shape. And this specific sound will make the shape, and as soon as you begin to change the frequency of the sound, the shape breaks up and a new one is formed. So talking about, you have harmony and then disharmony. In order to make the new form, you basically have to change the frequency.
Yes, exactly.
So I totally agree with that. Yet, as our dear friend Steve Farrell said to me one time, we were talking about humming, he said, you know, you can't hum if you're angry. I tried that. I said, you're right. You know, I can do it. I just can't hum when I'm angry. I love that.
Yeah, I like that too. And Stephen, is there something that you'd like to add to this?
Sure. Well, actually, that's a good segue, I think, to a question from Helen, who says, can you mention the role of laughter as sound in healing?
Oh, my gosh. Yes, it's one of the most therapeutic, whether it's Norm Cousins or I have a dear friend by the name of Laraji, who is one of the great ambient musicians and also laughter therapists. And laughter is it's just fabulous. And it creates all sorts of things. And Stephen, just as we're talking, I want to tell you a couple of things that happen even when we're humming, and this is also going to happen when we do any sort of self-created sound. You get a lowering of blood pressure and heart rate. You get increased levels of melatonin. Melatonin, of course, is used for people who have difficulty sleeping, but also it's been used for treatment of depression. You get reduced levels of stress-related hormones such as cortisol, and you get the release of endorphins, which are these wonderful self-created opiates. One of the things that particularly I think is important is you get the increased levels of nitric oxide. Now, do you know nitric oxide?
No, give us a little bit of explanation there.
Okay, it was actually in 2008 voted the molecule of the year, which kind of cracks me up because I can imagine a little molecule going on stage going, thank you very much, something like that. But it's a vasodilator, which means that it relaxes and widens our blood vessels, which is really, really important because if you like, the opposite of that leads to all sorts of conditions. So for cardiovascular work, the release of nitric oxide, very important. Then, of course, you get the release of oxytocin, the trust hormone. And as Anna Mari, when we were talking before about, harmony, when you make sound together, if we're all to make a sound together, we would basically, any barriers that existed between us would drop, and all of a sudden we would be resonating and vibrating together. How cool is that?
Absolutely, that is just so true. And I mean, many of us in the spiritual circles, we know the feeling that we get when we get together in a group, and all of a sudden we start humming together. How that just takes you to another beautiful, beautiful level. But Jonathan, I mean, we're talking about an ancient art, ancient practice. And especially, and I'm thinking about the tuning fork. Automatically, what comes to mind for me is again, from the African continent that I'm from. Through my research into the African concept of oneness, I have had the privilege to delve into our ancient African cosmology and some of the symbols that go with it. And one of these symbols is called the Ankh, which is, I think you may be familiar with it. That is the cross with the loop at the top. And I've read so much about it, and I was wondering, when I see that, I immediately think about the tuning fork. And
me too.
This Ankh has a very symbolic value. So I know that the Ankh stands for eternal life, or we can say that energy where life just flows and you are in total peace with life. But the Ankh is also known for having physical powers. I know that when it is said that when it was made out of stone, that it carried electromagnetic charge that could be used in a number of ways. So I'm sure that when it comes to the tuning fork and all of this, it goes back to ancient practices and ancient tools like this, isn't that?
Well, I totally agree. I really have thought that there were at least versions of ankhs that were made out of metal, and that when you hit them, they would vibrate and put out, and then attached to the rods would, create this
Yes.
incredible field of life-affirming energy. So I totally agree that the ankh and the tuning fork are very interrelated. Hold on, let me just see if I can. Here we go. Well, here's one you can hear a little better. Just for this is interesting. Can you hear that at all?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And here. Because don't forget that there's an electromagnetic field that is being affected by the sounds, as well as the physical body.
And what you're demonstrating there, Jonathan, because there's a question from Nicole who said, would you speak more about the use of tuning forks in healing? And you were demonstrating waving the fork around your head. So in terms of the practical physical usage, is that one way to?
Well, normally I would use 2 tuning forks, but this one would be larger, and I had planned to have a couple here, and then Stephen, I was having difficulty getting on, and lo and behold, I'm looking around for another. Oh, excuse me. What am I doing? You know, how you say it's right in front of me, and so I have, we'll be using 2 tuning forks like this, and sure, I will give an example of this. Let me see what else I have. I have all these toys here, so thank you. And oh, what do we have here? Oh my goodness, these are the Gaia frequency tuning forks. These are the ones that are tuned to the frequency of the Earth. And here, this one I'm gonna. You might be able to hear it.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of vibrato.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one way of doing it. And then another way that you can do it with these particular tuning forks, you would hit them, and then you would like touch them to a part of your body, and it puts the frequency into the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really fabulous. It's really fabulous. This is just one of many, many different types of tuning forks. I had not intended this to be a class in tuning fork techniques, and I would like to suggest that if somebody's interested, they look at some of the videos that are out, or books that are out, or just play around with them, because they're very, very powerful and they're easy. And what I really like is that I can drop these, I can pick them up, and they won't break.
Sure.
Nice.
So, Jonathan, I mean, when it comes to what you're doing, I've noticed on your web page that you do offer lots of training programs, and that you also teach others to do what you're doing. Isn't that so? You want to share a little bit about so when it comes to sound healing, what are some of the most popular things that people get involved with, and that which are the ones that you really like to share with others?
Well, I do like tuning forks, and I do like working with the mantras, and I do like working with the different sounds to resonate the chakras, as well as listening, just closing your eyes and listening to music that is created for you. And I will suggest that I have a degree in filmmaking from Boston University. And I also, obviously, I am a bit of an audio engineer. So I've always realized the power of light and sound together, i.e., movies and films and video. So I had always wanted to create a video that enabled my teachings to be present. And for some reason, whenever I did it, I worked on Anna Mari for about 20 years with different people. Never happened. And finally, about a year ago, I worked for, well, actually, 3 years ago I began. About a year ago it got completed. And on our website, there's a link for a 10-hour, which is about what a weekend with me, course called The Power of Sound Healing. And it's really, really cool. I like to think that it's the gold standard of online courses. Honest to goodness, there's a 100-page workbook with it, as well as hours and hours of healing sounds, etc. So I'm very, very pleased and very, very proud of it as well, which, or shall we say, thankful that somehow this is finally manifested.
Fabulous. So, Stephen, I'm not quite sure about the amount of time that we have left when, you know, since we started a little bit late. But something that I want to touch on before I hand over to you, Stephen, is the whole question of, Jonathan, the role of willingness and participation when it comes to our healing and our transformation. Now, there's a saying, again, going back to traditional you know, ways of doing things, is that we are used to people looking at this and saying we're going into trance. And it is when we go into trance that we transform our lives. Although the other day I heard this very interesting suggestion that says that we're not really going into trance, but sound and dance is the vehicle to come out of trance and out of the illusion of separateness. Well, that's just another way of looking at it, but I say when I heard that, I rather like that. So we're not into trance, but we are coming out of trance, out of the illusion of separateness through sound and through dance.
Well, I like to suggest that through the arts, okay, we can get into what the Hindu tradition in Sanskrit calls Advaita, which is a state of non-duality, of oneness. Yeah. That is so important. It doesn't mean we have to be the same. We can be very, very different. And yet we can be as one, and that is so wonderful. So therefore, I was talking about before how you get the release of oxytocin when you begin to make sounds together with other people, and you basically resonate as one. That's a whole really wonderful thing about sound, is that it changes your vibrational rate. Real quick, our brain oscillates at different frequencies, and these tuning forks, for example, when I hit them together, they create a difference tone between the two of them, which I did hit a little bit like this. You could hear it. It's a wah-wah type of thing. And this actually causes the brain to begin to entrain to what is called a really high theta state of consciousness, which is very, very good for, if you like, dealing with other realms, releasing trauma, and just all sorts of wonderful phenomena. So change it. It's great that we can shift and change our brain waves. It's great that we can shift and change our vibrational rate. I'm a huge believer. I think that this is, once again, with World Sound Healing Day, if we can shift and change the vibrations just a little bit of the, you know, field of the planet and all beings on it, oh, how great would that be if we just began to resonate together. I like to say we heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves and we heal the planet. Together, we can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Over to you, Stephen.
Sure. And Jonathan, that might be a good segue to a couple of questions about different sounds from different cultures. So
Sure.
One question was about, can you talk about Indian music scales? These sounds seem more layered and complex to the North American ear. And then there was another question about, can you mention the effects of the Tibetan singing bowls?
That was a Tibetan tone. That wasn't a singing bowl. You know, I planned to have a singing bowl in front of me, but Unfortunately, that didn't happen either. Singing bowls are wonderful. I like them very much, very, very much. And once again, from my perspective, you can take almost any tuning fork or any bowl, have a particular intention, and basically hit it. And manifest that intention on the sound. So frequency plus intent equals healing. Now, with regard to Indian music, of which I am I love it. It's too complicated to talk now. A lot of it is, it's difficult for me because what happens when I start talking about the, if you like, physics of music or about musicology, it loses a lot of people. So let's just say that the Indians have created many, many different precise, different scales, and I honor it and I love it. And what's very, very interesting is that a piano is done on something called equal temperament that happened sometime after Bach. They took the scale and they basically made it so you could play it on a keyboard. And a lot of Indian musicians, when they hear a piano, they hear it as being out of tune. But of course, we don't. So a lot of it is very cultural as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can talk for hours on this, so you just tell me how long or how short I can.
Yeah, and we've got probably about 15 minutes, so I think we're pretty good. Anna Mari, I could continue with questions from that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So question, let's see here, from Michael. He said, can you please talk about sound healing with regard to something like cancer? If someone has breast cancer, for instance, will chanting ah help in some way in healing it?
Well, I will tell you that there has been research recently, but it's also not that recent. But there has been research, when I say not that recent, probably in the 1930s, there was a fellow by the name of Royal Rife who began to work with different high-frequency sounds to basically blow up cancer cells, just the same way that you could take a glass, and if you match the resonant frequency of the glass with your voice, you can shatter it. You know, I don't know if you all remember Memorex and Ella Fitzgerald doing that, but recently there was a musician who was a professor at Skidmore named Anthony Holland who did the same thing and is now trying to, if you like, get more funding and more research in terms of using high-frequency ultrasounds to blow up cancer cells, which is certainly an extraordinary thing. And they have also used high-frequency ultrasound. This is way beyond our level of hearing, but doesn't mean that it's not sound, because, for example, we hear from about 16 to around 16,000 cycles a second. Dolphins can create sounds upwards of 180,000 cycles a second, which is more than 10 times our highest level of hearing. To us, there's probably nothing going on. They can be exchanging perhaps the tuna noodle casserole recipes or something like that. And anyway, so really high frequency sounds have been used. There's another fellow by the name of Dr. Jeff Ilias from the University of Virginia who has used them in conjunction with MRIs to work with people with severe Parkinson's, etc., being able to literally non-evasively change and disintegrate the problem in the person's brain. It was just incredible. This is stuff that you can look on the internet and see. So, of course, I am very, very hopeful. So that's one method of healing. And the other method is to simply use a sound such as ah or whatnot, not to destroy what's going on, but to basically reinforce the, if you like, energy of the organ and make it healthy so that whatever intruder is there dissipates. Does that make sense?
It does.
It does.
So there's two very different forms. One is to destroy the intruder, and the other is to make healthy the organ. How about if they were used together? What a concept.
Sure, sure.
We have another question about DNA and sound. So this is from Kennedy, and he or she asks, Jonathan, what are the new sonics of this 2019 opening, and how is it affecting our DNA?
I wouldn't know where to begin. One has to open up the whole quantum matrix in order to begin to infiltrate that field of consciousness. Hello, Kennedy, and thank you for that wonderful question. It is way too, shall we say, complicated to answer in a sure thing, except that change abounds right now, and we can certainly look forward to all sorts of amazing things. And once again, frequency plus intent equals healing. One could even take a tuning fork like this, once again. And depending upon the intention that I have, let the intention travel on the sound, and the sound could go and encode itself on onto a DNA level. So I don't know on certain levels if it has to be a specific frequency. Sometimes I think it needs to be, once again, that interval, that space between the two that can create and change the difference, and also our intent, our consciousness, and our belief.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say in that, kind of between the lines, is that, and this goes back to the non-judgment, that making a sound with the intent, we don't need to get wrapped up in like, oh, what frequency am I humming at specifically? It's just to do it.
I mean, I think very, very much so. The more it seems, when I first came up with this formula, frequency plus intent equals healing, the reason I came up with it was that I had literally collected a pile of papers that were yo-high with different frequencies or different for different organs and different mantras for different organs. And I, at the time, coming from a family of doctors, I thought it was going to be, they were just all going to align, but they didn't necessarily align. And I was in a state of intellectual angst. And I will tell you, Stephen, I was sitting in front of my computer that used, this is dating me, a DOS operating system, and a dark screen with amber letters. I was sitting there with my head in my hands going, how can this be? How can this be? How can there be so many different systems that seem to be able to heal using sound, and yet they are not the same? And I heard this inner voice say, it is not only the frequency of the sound that creates the effect. It is the intention of the person making and receiving the sound. So that was back in 1985, and at the time, people were like, particularly scientists were like, what are you talking about intention? And now, of course, beloved Wayne Dyer did a book about the power of intention, and a lot of people are really focusing on how important our consciousness, our belief, our intention is.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. Thank you for that. So this next question gets into like recorded music, right? So we've talked a lot about the creation of vibration through the tuning forks in our voice. And this is from, I think it's Zulo. And the question is, do you think that listening to music all day long with headphones has positive or negative effect?
Okay, in truth, I think that probably doing anything all the time is not necessarily really good. It's really good to give the body, mind, and spirit a break, whether it's swimming, playing music, or drinking water, even. Just you need to allow the body time to assimilate. And also, sometimes I am a little bit concerned that listening to sound all the time can, shall we say, be detrimental, and potentially, you really need to watch the volume. Think about it. The word silent and the word listen are composed of the same letters. So silence is perhaps as important as the sound, and we need to be silent in order to listen. And sometimes listening to silence is actually one of the great spiritual techniques of our time. Really, it's called Shabd Yoga. or basically listening to the inaudible sound current, you travel unconsciousness to the higher planes of evolution.
Nice. What a revelation that is, that listen and silent have the same.
Is that interesting?
That's really something. Wow. I mean, and that's by no accident, I'm sure. Nicole asks, what is the greatest use of sound vibration healing, and what is the current greatest need in the field?
This is one, of course, you have to understand. Boy, we are going on our 17th annual World Sound Healing Day. And close to 18 or 19 years ago, I was in a state of deep meditation, and this inner voice said, okay, you have spent probably 20 or more years helping bring the awareness of how sound can be used to heal the body. Now you need to also incorporate how sound can be used to heal our planet. And that's all I got. I was not told how to do this. I had to figure out doing something like World Sound Healing Day. But I think that, boy, I am concerned about what we are doing to our beloved Gaia. And if we could come into consciousness, come into harmony, come into the realization of oneness, and realize that what affects one person affects another person, then we would take much better care of our beloved planet, which is why we have a day like World Sound Healing Day, and there are global meditations that are happening, more and more frequently. And I just think that this is really our primary concern at this particular point in time and space, because we really want to leave a green, lush, vibrant planet to our children's children, etc. And so I really feel that that is very, very important to me. But of course, using sound to make yourself feel better, whether it's using music to just cheer up and whatnot, to using sound to vibrate and resonate and change some sort of imbalance in the body, is also very important.
Well, I'll say amen to that. And could you give us your website one more time?
It's Healing Sounds, sounds with an S at the end, .com.
Okay.
HealingSounds.com.
And then we've got just one final question, and this is appropriate because it's related to your website, and it's from Martha. She asks, are you opening to answering questions submitted through your website? I'm thinking about the Indian scale degrees that I'm interested in, and some other things. So we just want to find out how people can contact you, if at all, that way.
Well, they can certainly write info@healingsounds.com. There's a way to go in it. And I will also admit that I've been studying this for about 40 years, been practicing it for about 40, 50 or more years. And I'm just beginning to realize that I know nothing. The more I know, the less I know. So I would do my best to help you, but there's so much in the world of sound. There's so much in the world of sound.
And it sounds like experiment, have fun, and don't think too much about it.
Right, and I think the other thing is do no harm. That's the only caveat that we have in terms of like using your voice and all this stuff is, you don't want to sing too loud to either hurt your voice or hurt someone's ears or hurt your own ears. These are all possible things. Everything in moderation, the middle path.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a perfect note to end on. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us. We lost Anna Mari. I think her internet connection had decided to take a break. So, but I'm sure she extends her gratitude to you as well. And just thank you again for your time today. This was really fun to do with you.
Oh, it was great. So thank you so much. Bye.
All right. So with that, let me just mention a couple of closing things related to Humanities Team. Humanities Team is the creator and developer and deliverer of a thing called the Conscious Business Enterprise, which is our training and certification program. If you are interested in becoming a conscious business change agent, you can go to cbenterprise.com for more information. We'll soon actually have more detail about the 2019 class. You can sign our Conscious Business Declaration, 7 Principles to Doing Conscious Business. If the principles resonate with you, you can actually sign the declaration online. If you go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org, you can access that. And then our Humanities Team Oneness Declaration, just go to humanitiesteam.org, and these are principles of oneness for healing, expanding, evolving our world. And then you can register at livinginone.com for Steve Farrell's second event in his 3 Keys to Conscious Leadership webinar series. This next one is called Become Fully Alive in Your Life and Step into Your True Power. It will webcast on Saturday, January 19th at 9 a.m. Pacific. And we've got, and then I'll be speaking with a good friend of mine, Heather Elizabeth, on cosmic science and the evolutionary journey on Thursday, the 24th, 9 a.m. Pacific. You could register for that as well at livinginone.com. And then Barbara Marks Hubbard, we're happy to be working with her. We're going to have an encore presentation of a webinar we actually did with Barbara last night. It's called Becoming an Ambassador of Evolution. The encore with a live Q&A with Barbara will happen on Saturday, January 26th at 9 a.m. Pacific. Join our community circle for $10 a month, $100 per year for access to all of our Living in Oneness interviews. And then thanks, not least, to everyone who's been here and supports us in Humanities Team, especially Garth Catterall and Christine Glenn, who helped out with the program here today producing. Dee Meyer is our marketing director, Nanette Kennedy, communications. Steve Farrell's our executive director, and Judith McNellis is his assistant. So thank you all for your support, love, and peace. So with that, again, Jonathan, thank you very much for being here. We trust that people were enlightened and enlivened by the discussion. So appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I hope they were a little entertained too.
I'm sure they were. I know I was. All right. Peace, everyone. Namaste.
Blessings.